It's been a record-breaking week on Wall Street thanks to the passage of two landmark trade agreements negotiated by the Trump administration and some strong economic data. Let's bring in the president's former economic advisor and fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Stephen Moore, to talk about what's fueling this record-breaking boom. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, great to be with you. By the way, it's hard for me to improve on those numbers you just reported. I mean, it's unbelievable. Every day we just see more and more positive numbers rolling in, and it's hard to find anything to complain now about this U.S. economy.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go ahead and start with trade. We had the signing of the Phase 1 trade deal with China and the passage of the USMCA within a day of each other this week. How did these agreements bolster the U.S. economy even more?
Well, they increase American exports and the purchases by foreigners of American products, and that means potentially millions of additional jobs. If the China trade deal works out and China abides by it, that's a big if, because we know this Beijing government doesn't always honor its commitments. But if they do, we're talking about potentially $100 billion of more products sold in the United States and sold to China in the next year or two. Think about the number of jobs that are related to $100 billion. And we're talking about our farmers, our ranchers, our manufacturers, our oil and gas producers, and our technology companies. So very positive on the China front. I'm actually surprised that Trump got as good a deal from Beijing as he did. So that was, I think, a real vindication for his trade strategy. And then, of course, getting Canada-Mexico trade agreement done, continues this Reagan idea that North America should be a free trade zone that is able to compete effectively with Asia and Europe, and that's exactly what this does. So that's quite a twosome of very strong trade deals. And as you say, unbelievable, they were done within 2 days of each other.
On top of those trade deals, investors have, of course, also been keeping an eye on the beginning of earnings season. We're off to a pretty strong start overall. What are you expecting to see from this earnings season here in the U.S.?
Well, look, I'm not an expert on the stock market and where it's headed. I mean, I think we're going to see. By the way, of course, as my buddy Larry Cutler would say, profits are the mother's milk of the stock market. So if you have companies that are profitable, then stock values go up. It's pretty simple. And so, as you look at the U.S. economy right now, are there any dark clouds on the horizon? Not really. I mean, it's very unlikely we're going to see a tax increase. We've got the trade wars over for now. The Fed has a pretty good monetary policy in place. So I think that we could potentially get to 3% growth in 2020, which would be, a really nice level of achievement for the U.S. economy. And that means, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars of additional output. And by the way, when the economy grows like that, the deficit falls. So I see smooth sailing ahead, and if I'm right about that, then Trump will be fairly easily reelected.
The president is set to be attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland next week. He had to skip out last year due to the government shutdown. What can we expect to hear from President Trump as he addresses economic issues with other global leaders?
Oh, well, I think you know the answer to that one. I mean, this guy's going to do and I know Donald Trump, he's going to do a victory dance, as well he should. We're growing at 2.5% to 3%. The rest of the world's basically flat, so he's going to tell the leaders of the rest of the world, if you want to prosper, if you want to do well for your citizens, if you want to create more jobs and higher wages, do what we're doing here in the United States. Cut your taxes, reduce your regulations, promote your energy, and not just green energy, but nuclear power and oil and gas and coal and everything to reduce your energy costs. And so I think Trump will, shake a finger at these guys and say, look, it's not that difficult. You just have to do what the United States does and promote free markets and free enterprise, and you will see better living standards for your citizens. And by the way, I won't be surprised if he especially, chastises Europe, because Europeans were very hostile to Trump, when he was first elected, and he still has a little bit of a rocky relationship with some of those European leaders. But, we are so out competing Europe right now that he has, I think, a right to basically, as I say, take a victory lap around them here.
And before I let you go real quick, looking forward, the Trump administration is, of course, committed to sustaining the current strength that we're seeing in this economy. What kind of policies are key to ensure the boom continues?
Well, I think that, it's very simple. And I've said this many times, there's only three words that I think would really, really worry investors and disrupt this nice bull market expansion we're on right now. And those three words are President Elizabeth Warren. If the markets start to believe and investors and employers start to believe that there's some chance that an Elizabeth Warren or a Joe Biden or a Bernie Sanders becomes the next president, then I think all bets are off because, they have a pretty scary agenda. But, as long as people feel confident that Trump's going to win re-election and these current policies will stay in place, I think we can, it's very smart to stay in the market. Employers, we're starting to see a big comeback in capital spending now, which had been down a little bit last year. So there's a lot of confidence out there right now, and I think it'll continue.
All right, Stephen Moore, a fellow at the Heritage Foundation and President Trump's former economic advisor. Thanks so much for joining us to talk about the record-breaking economic boom under President Trump.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One American News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.